Coming up, decisions at the end of life. How you can remain in control.
A ride with Paul Ducott, an older American in the driver's seat of life.
And we'll all be enrolling in the Disney Institute, the newest attraction at Florida's Walt Disney World. All this and much more next on Time for Living. Hello, I'm Rex Traylor.
And I'm Janet Jagalian. Welcome to Time for Living.
You know, Janet, our show is really taking off. I hear from people all over the place. They watch us on a regular basis.
Certainly is, Rex. You know, a few weeks ago, there was a nice article about our show in the Tab. And just last week, some of the Cape Cod weeklies ran a feature on us.
You know, it's so nice to hear from viewers on the Cape. Speaking of the Cape, you know, Cape Cod remains the fastest growing part of Massachusetts. And a large segment of the people moving there are older Americans.
The U.S. Census Bureau reports that 20% of the Cape's population is 65 years of age or older.
Well, that's one of the reasons we do our show. America's older population is growing, needs information on how to stay active.
And you might think that television programmers are ignoring that segment of the public. Well, not us.
Not very likely. We'll be here every week from 3 to 4 with information and features of interest to you. Now remember, this is your show.
And we'll keep bringing you health and lifestyle news and features. Some are lighthearted and some quite serious.
In fact, today we're discussing a serious topic. With most money in health care spent in the waning days of a patient's life, when should the health care stop? In other words, when should you stop spending a lot of money on a patient who is old, or should you stop? Time for Living Steve Brown looks at some of the economic, political, and emotional issues facing patients and doctors in the final days of life.
I know I'm dying, and death will come. And I think that I've had some enriching experiences here.
For Dr. Stephen Cronin, death is a fact of life. Having been diagnosed with inoperable cancer, he lives at this residential hospice in Needham. He's one of thousands of people faced with the need to plan his final days. For Dr. Cronin, the hospice was a choice he reluctantly made.
I'd always thought of a hospice as a watered-down nursing home. It's the smell of urine, smell of human waste, the moaning, the groaning, the yelling, and it's kind of a hell of a way to go out.
But after moving in, his view is much different.
The facility is obviously clean, well taken care of, and it's home. Like if you take a look at my room, it's a pig pen, because that's me, that's my nature, so they haven't impinged upon.
We know that the majority of people, a large majority, would prefer to die at home. And insofar as people know about hospice and have access to hospice services, it's a much more desirable site for most people. However, a lot of people don't know about hospice or have misconceptions about hospice or aren't referred to hospice by their physician. So probably not as many people use hospice as could benefit from it.
Dr. Susan Block is a psychiatrist who focuses on end-of-life issues. She says dying patients should have certain expectations.
All people should be able to expect to have good communication with their physician, an honest understanding of their disease and its prognosis, that their pain and any symptoms they might have should be well controlled, that they should have control and some degree of say over where they're cared for and the kind of care they receive, so they can get the kind of care they want but not the kind of care they don't want. I think they should be able to expect attention to their family, to be known and respected as people, even when they're facing the end of their lives.
Patients nearing the end of their lives need to be in control of their situation as best they can.
I think finding a physician that you can work with, who you can talk to about what the options are, who's interested in what your feelings, how you weigh these various options is enormously important. I think for some patients, reading and using the internet and other sources can be important, calling the American Cancer Society. But I think usually it works out best if you can find someone you can talk to directly who knows you and who knows your particular situation in detail.
Sometimes people want care that isn't going to benefit them, what we call in medicine feudal care. And in that situation, I think it's the physician's responsibility to say, I can't give you this care because it's not going to help you. It's not going to prolong your life. It's not going to give you what you think it's going to offer. And so I think that's one issue. But I think a patient who wants to fight till the end and have maximum treatment should have available that kind of care and should be able to tell their physician and have their wishes respected that that's the kind of care they want.
Death is not new and comes to everyone. So I think we've always had to address these issues. I think what's really changed in the past 20 or more years is there have been so many more options now available to us to treat people. Some of them with great benefit, some of them with marginal benefit. And I think the big change in my mind is that we recognize that some patients want these interventions and other people don't.
And no matter the decision, options are available.
Visit a hospice. See what it's like. And don't be afraid to leave home. I mean, leaving your home is sad. But it's cost-benefit, so to speak. Using an economic term, that you're giving up something to take on something better. My son doesn't have to worry about me.
Is that a relief for you?
Yeah. I don't want him worrying.
Joining us now to talk about this important but difficult issue is Christina Snyder. Christina has worked at the grassroots level of hospice for years, helping patients converse with the medical community about this very important aspect of health care. And in just a few moments, we'll be taking your calls on Time for Living, and our phone number is 617-244-3344. So pick up the phone and give us a call to take part in the discussion. Welcome, Christina. It's nice to have you here. This is a topic that if you mention it to some, they'll say, oh, what a downer. But you know, there's a lot to be gained from understanding what hospice is all about. And in a sense, I think it offers tremendous comfort to people who are going through the whole process of dying. So why don't we begin by giving people a better understanding of what hospice is and perhaps its roots. Does it go back to biblical times? That's what I was once told.
Well, hospice is a way station for pilgrims who used to make religious pilgrims in the Middle Ages, and certain religious orders would have these resting places for them where they could stop on the way. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of a metaphor for a resting place on a voyage. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's called hospice.
Now, what are the criteria that are established for an opportunity to enter into hospice?
Well, the first is that there is some prognosis that you have a certain amount left to live, usually around 6 months. Now, most physicians, don't have a crystal ball, but mm-hmm. they make a fairly good educated guess. And then you have to have, of course, the willing consent of the person and their family and the doctor to take part in this.
And is this offered exclusively in facilities that are providing hospice care, or is it in addition to the home and nursing home settings?
Hospice is primarily home care. The institutions are very secondary. The whole concept of hospice, that you are at home with your family in the comfort of your home, the reassurance of your home, that your family takes part in your care. Mm-hmm. The institutional settings are for people who either have no home or no family. Mm-hmm. And then there are special hospice houses. And
why would a person want to choose hospice over going to a hospital?
Well, for the same reason that the whole hospice movement was started. It was started by people who weren't medical people at all, but had watched their parents or someone in their family die in an institutional setting, mm-hmm. where they were pretty much avoided because they were dying because the medical profession felt they were failing by not curing them. And so people who were dying in very isolated situations and sometimes in very severe pain. And the wonderful thing about hospice is that it's people like myself who are not medical people at all who said there's got to be a better way to do this.
And it isn't just for the dying person, it's for the family as well.
Very much.
And I think in a hospital situation you don't find that kind of support network as you would in hospice.
Well, there's a famous experiment that was done to clock how many seconds a doctor spends with a dying patient and with a patient who is going to be cured, and I think it was something like, 3.5 seconds in the door, hi, how are you, and then on to the next person. So there's a lot of fear still that goes on.
What about the cost ratio or the cost benefits of going to hospice or going through your regular health insurance?
Well, the cost benefits are really very large, and when you think about the fact that most of the high expenses occur at the end of life in intensive care units and high-tech interventions and so on. But that's really not why hospice is best. It's best because most people want to die in their own home. And for most families, I think it's the time they have to give what they can, to resolve what they can, and to feel like they've done everything they could for that person.
Is it covered by Medicare and Medicaid?
It is.
So that if you're in the home or in some kind of institutional setting, it is covered equally?
Yes.
Is there something that a person has to give up to go on hospice? In other words, are they no longer allowed any other life-saving measures? Instead, only comfort and care is offered?
It's a decision that really is made between the hospice team and the person themselves. I think there's some hospices that feel that do not resuscitate should be something that a person would think about. But I can't imagine anyone not being in hospice care because they choose another
having
way.
worked in the nursing home setting, having seen hospice put to practice, and also having a close friend of the family go through this as well, I can only rave about the benefits of hospice. I just think that it's there for very real and very important reasons, as I said, not just for the individual, but for the family. I think that the only question that has to be responded to is the quality of care that is extended to the individual as compared to the kind of professional medical service one might get in the hospital.
Well, I think that's very interesting because through hospice, there's been so much more learned about pain treatment than before. We assume that the medical profession knows how to treat pain well, but in fact, they really are much more concentrating on the curative aspects. Hospice is really the concept of care that brought the whole pain treatment issue into the open and said it's not being treated, that there's no pain treatment curriculum in medical schools, and that everyone has a right to die pain-free. Because when people are asked what is it they fear the most about dying, they will say that they fear the pain and they fear isolation.
Yes.
And those are the two things that hospice addresses.
Now, how does an individual become qualified to be a hospice worker? Are they nurses? Are they social workers?
There's an interdisciplinary team which consists of a physician and nurses and social workers, bereavement counselors, pastoral counselors, very important, the spiritual care of the person in the family, home health aides, homemakers. There's a whole variety of team members who are available. And then there's a very, very large volunteer component, which I think is very important because it brings the community into people's homes. It sort of takes death out of the closet, and it makes people much more interactive at a time when they really need each other, when neighbors can reach out to neighbors. And so I think the volunteer aspect is really...
Is there licensure or certification that goes with it?
Yes,
For the volunteers as well?
The volunteers actually go through extensive screening and volunteer training, and supervision ongoing. They have to.
Yeah. We hope we've provoked some questions in your mind that you'd like to get answered. And when Time for Living continues, we'll take your calls for Christina Snyder. So give us a call at 617-244-3344. And welcome back to Time for Living. I'm joined by Christina Snyder, and we're talking about hospice care and other end-of-life issues. And we'd like to hear from you on this. To join the conversation, just give us a call at 617-244-3344. And before we get right to the phones, Christina, I just want to repeat that a person must be in a situation where they've got about 6 months of life left before they are allowed to get involved in hospice. Is that basically the criteria?
Right, that's the Medicare benefit requirement. But actually, in reality, people are referred much too late. We would be happy in hospice care if people were referred at 6 months. But there's such a reluctance to tell somebody that they have a short amount of time. So very often people are referred in the last 3 weeks of their life. And that's really devastating, because then you're really just dealing with crisis.
Yes, absolutely. Let's take a quick phone call. And Sue from Boston, you're on Time for Living.
Hi.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks.
Lovely show, thank you. So you just sort of kind of answered my question. My question was, when should you consider a hospice situation for a family member who's ill, and who should help you make that decision?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think very often families need to get a lot more information than they get. That's the biggest issue. They're reluctant to bother the physician, they're reluctant to call, they're reluctant to find out themselves. But I think families really need to say to the medical professionals, what is your best guess? What is going on? What are we going to anticipate? What are we going to need? And really get some straight facts.
Well, who do you get this from then? The doctor?
I would certainly talk to the physician. I think that is part of the physician's job, is to talk to the families and then to talk very openly with the person involved.
Sue, do you have someone who is currently involved in some kind of end-of-life issue?
Well, I have an aunt, my father's sister, and you know, her family's having a hard time with this. They
Of
don't,
course.
you know, they don't really know, you know, like you say, they don't want to talk about it.
And they don't want to see her suffer, and also they're suffering themselves as well. And as I said, I can speak from somewhat firsthand information, having seen families go through this bereavement process with the assistance of hospice, and they are so supportive. And I don't know where you find the people that do the work for hospice, but they are so sensitive and so caring and so
They're a
positive.
self-selected group. One thing I want to say is that although families aren't talking about it, they're all thinking about it, and it might be a relief for them to be able to talk about it. It's not like it's not on their minds.
Would they be able to then just call a hospice center and
Yes.
and try to get more
Yes.
more information?
Yes.
Is there a number that you would like to give that might be appropriate?
There's the Massachusetts Federation, Hospice Federation, and I don't happen to have their number.
Okay, well,
but
we
I
can
need to
perhaps
look.
get that before we're concluded. But Sue, I want to thank you very much
like
for your
to thank
call,
you.
and I do hope that you'll find some help.
Thank you.
Lisa from Framingham, you're next on Time for Living.
Hi.
Hello, Lisa.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to say that this is a wonderful show.
Thank you.
And second of all, I'd like to ask a question. I'm interested in volunteering. I understand that you pool a lot of your, a lot of volunteers. How can I get involved in doing that?
I would suggest that you find out what your local hospice is. You're in Framingham?
Yes.
I know that there's a hospice in the Framingham area. And you just call them, and what'll happen is you'll get an interview, you'll find about the training schedule, and the training is very important because it'll help you determine whether this is something you really want to do also.
Is it a preset schedule of training?
Yes, usually it is, yes.
So many hours or weeks or whatever?
Yes, and you should call the Mass Hospice Federation, and they will tell you what your local hospice program is in Framingham.
What are you looking for in volunteers specifically?
Well, it's interesting. We're looking in people who really can come in with a very fresh and clean mind with no agenda, because we're there as volunteers to listen and not to tell people how to do things right or well, but to really listen to them and to be there for them. And in some cases, just to be there, not even to talk, just the presence or holding hands or watching television together. It's that allowing yourself to be there for that person in any way.
So it's the personality that you're looking for that is really open and able to interact well. So there's no really college background training or anything of that sort that you're looking for?
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think we've had volunteers of all different ages and from various professions.
Well, Lisa, I hope you'll call and follow up on it.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call. What about managed care? The thought just came to mind. Do they have a hospice element as well in managed care?
Oh, interesting. Well, not that I'm aware of. In many of the programs, and now what happens is that if someone is in a situation where they want hospice, the managed care program could contract with a local hospice program for some services.
And you earlier mentioned something about doctors and their sensitivity to hospice and the needs that are involved with the dying individual. Are they getting better education in medical schools now to address these issues, in your view?
They should be. I'm not sure if they are. There's been a whole new Robert Wood Johnson Foundation research project in which they had a lot of communication about dying issues in hospitals from nurses to patients. But what happened was that the decisions remained in the doctor's hands and they remained the same. So it's obvious that the physicians have to be much more involved themselves than sort of making the nurse take the role as the communicator. And more than anything, the physician has to become the listener. And that's really, I think, the biggest skill that still needs to be learned.
That's very important, I would think, because I believe that the individual patient should have the feeling that he's still in control of what is happening.
Right.
So that if the doctor is a good listener, then that individual can. And just how would an individual who is dying maintain that control?
I think by really being upfront as to what their needs are and insistent if things aren't going right. I mean, nobody wants to be a pest, so people end up dying in pain because they don't want to bother the healthcare professionals. I think people really do have the right to say, I'm not getting enough pain medication. I need more help in this, and just to be really insistent.
I think that it's important that people give this issue a great deal of thought, and perhaps if they are currently involved in this kind of a desperate situation where they need help and support and outside assistance of a hospice, that they should explore it as you have suggested. And would Yellow Pages be the best source to find hospice care, or at least direction?
I'd call the Massachusetts Hospice Federation. I don't know if all the hospices are listed. Also, a hospice can be your advocate in an institutional setting and help you to get what you need.
Christina, thank you so much for opening our eyes to this very important and, in the eyes of some people, a very difficult issue to discuss.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Now, the phone number for the Massachusetts Hospice Federation is 617-255-7077, and you can call there for all the information that you need. As we've just discussed, end-of-life issues are among the toughest topics for parents to discuss with their children. However, it's very important that children know the wishes of their parents when it comes to how they want to die or how they want to be treated if they cannot speak for themselves. In today's Newsbreak segment, Time for Living's Carolyn Murdoch tells us more about advance directives and how they can help relieve children from the burden of making some very difficult decisions.
Judy Kramer writes a weekly column for a local newspaper about the joys and trials of caring for aging parents. And she knows the pain of having to make one of the hardest decisions in the world, allowing a very ill parent to die.
Once the decision was made, there was a sense of relief. Relief that the decision had been made, relief that her suffering would be over.
Judy's mother had prepared an advance directive. It instructed Judy to allow her mother to die when the burdens of continuing to live become greater than the benefits.
Having the advance directive meant that I could make this decision, and I had no guilt because I had discussed it with my mother beforehand. I had discussed it with my father. I had discussed it with my brother.
Advance directives are statements outlining your wishes with respect to health care. Usually, they address two things.
One, spell out any particular wishes, important values or preferences that you have with respect to treatment, particularly end-of-life treatment, but it could be other things. And name a proxy, name an agent, as we say, to be your spokesperson when you can't speak for yourself.
Maybe most importantly, advance directives make the process of death and dying easier on family members.
We see time and time again families who have to make decisions for a mother or a father who've had no advance directive, who have no instructions ahead of time. And it's a very agonizing position to be in.
But even with an advance directive, the decision is still a difficult one. Less than 8 weeks after Judy Kramer's mother died, her gravely ill father took a turn for the worse. She had to implement his advance directive. He died soon after.
It hurt to have to make the decision, but my parents minimized that hurt, and in a way, they saved me a great deal of pain, and I'm very grateful to them.
I'm Carolyn Murdoch. Time for Living.
Welcome back to Time for Living. I'm Rex Traylor.
And I'm Janet Jagalian. In keeping with our theme of advance directives and end-of-life decisions, we decided to take a look at the best way to gauge how much money should be saved for health care by an individual or family.
Now, as we discussed, there are many things that a family can do to prepare themselves for what is certainly not a pleasant thing, but inevitable process. And as we can see, these things that you can do ease not only the pain, but the stress and burden that comes with the process. And since it seems preparation is the best way to deal with the end-of-life situations, the same principle applies to the financial aspect of this issue. But there are some unanswered questions. For instance, if you start saving now, will it be enough? How much should you save? What if you outlive the amount you put aside? Are there any legal precautions you can take to protect your savings? And for the answers and insight on these important questions, we turn to our financial expert, Steve Burke. So pay close attention, because this could make the difference between a happy or a sad ending.
Have you ever seen a catastrophe waiting to happen? Sadly, there's one out there for all of us to see. It's those people approaching retirement, in retirement, or with family members in those positions who think Medicare or Medicaid is going to take care of nursing home care if it's necessary in the years ahead. Unfortunately, that is not the way things will work out. Medicare may pay nursing home care if it calls for skilled care, and then only if it's approved. Beyond that, Medicare pays nothing beyond 100 days. So if a person is under care for longer than 3 months, there is no coverage. The other government-connected plan, Medicaid, pays only for people who are poor enough to qualify for financial assistance from the government. Put another way, a person must spend their own money until they have little or no money left. The irony is we live a lot longer than ever before, and that triggers a financial exposure which is unique to our society. And what is the financial exposure? Today it is called long-term care or nursing home experience. It is a strange dichotomy, longer-lived, but as a result, expenses our ancestors rarely had to face because they didn't live to be 70, or amazingly 100. Like it or not, a great many of we experienced citizens will find ourselves in nursing homes or need care at home which few family members will be trained to provide. So comes the question, what are our options? We can fall back on Medicaid, which is a program for those with little or no assets, Turn to our kids or other family members or friends, spend the money we have, hoping it will last, or develop a strategy to protect ourselves as well as spouses. In this last instance, we also would be helping our children who otherwise would be expected to somehow pay our long-term care bills. The problem itself is a very straightforward one. If you are unfortunate enough to find yourself in a nursing home, it will cost somewhere in the vicinity of $25,000 per year and up. Needless to say, that type of expense can devastate a retirement plan or assets which have taken a lifetime to build up. The simple solution is as straightforward as the problem. Transfer the risk to an insurance company, but carefully. You should shop for a nursing home care. Don't just buy the first policy that is offered. The first policy may be the best one, but take the time to compare. 3 companies are a fair sampling, but you can look at more if you like. Try to make a comparison chart for yourself which highlights those points which are important to you. As examples, you should compare the premiums, of course, but also, are there any surcharges for different premium schedules? Can the premiums be changed without your permission? Is the policy guaranteed renewable? What type of elimination periods are available? Do they reduce the cost appreciably? Are mental disorders such as Alzheimer's covered? Will there be coverage if you stay in your own or family member's home? Can family members or friends be compensated for taking care of you at home? Do pre-existing conditions eliminate or reduce coverage? Are all levels of care included in the plan? Skilled, intermediate, custodial? Are there reductions in the premium if you and your spouse purchase the same type of coverage? The most important question is, what are the exclusions? Finally, do not feel compelled to insure for the total amount of what you anticipate nursing home care will cost. As an example, if you feel that $25,000 per year will cover the bill at the nursing home of your choice, review that income which you may presently have from a pension plan, Social Security, or income from investments. Unless you need the income for a spouse or other financial commitments, it's sensible to subtract that income from the annual bill of the nursing home. $12,000 per year from Social Security could be applied to the $25,000 charge of the nursing home. This would mean you need only an additional $13,000 per year from a long-term care policy. This helps keep your premium lower. There are answers out there, and you have the talent to find them. This is Steve Burke, Time for Living.
Thanks very much, Steve. A lot of important information there. Now, if you folks missed any of that information, don't worry. You can ask Steve Burke your question by simply writing to Steve Burke, care of Health, Finance, and More, at Time for Living, Post Office Box 1698, Framingham, Massachusetts, 01701.
And up next on Time for Living, our Traveling Around segment, we'll be taking you to the newest attraction at Walt Disney World Resort, the Disney Institute. So stay with us.
More and more older Americans are packing their bags and seeing the world.
It's a big world out there, and I'm convinced that some older folks won't settle down until they've seen it all.
Well, we're doing our part here on Time for Living with our weekly Traveling Around segment.
And every week we'll take you to another exciting destination, and this week is no exception.
Now, what comes to your mind when you think of Walt Disney World? Magic Kingdom? Epcot Center? Mickey Mouse? The monorail? Well, they're all fixtures at the Central Florida theme park, but the folks at Disney have something new to offer, and many older adults are taking advantage of it. It's the Disney Institute, this week's Traveling Around destination. Located on the grounds of Walt Disney World Resort in Central Florida, the Disney Institute may be the closest thing to Fantasy Island. If you've ever wanted to anchor a TV newscast, cook a gourmet meal, or climb a vertical rock wall, you can do it all at the Disney Institute. Quite different from Disney's other attractions, the Disney Institute offers guests a chance to experience over 60 different programs.
I need an anchor person on front of the desk right now. I need 6 people in the control room now.
One of the most popular activities, the TV studios. Guests operate the cameras, write the scripts, and deliver the news from a state-of-the-art television facility.
More news in 1 hour from the Magic Mix, WALT.
TV's not your game? How about being a disc jockey on WALT radio?
Headline news this hour.
You can spin those platters that matter on the closed-circuit radio station. And guests can choose from more than 3,000 songs from 5 different formats.
That's the exact process they do at feature animation when they're doing.
Have you always been fascinated by cartoon animation? At the Disney Institute, you can learn the magical process of bringing drawings to life. Experts in the field give you step-by-step instructions on how to do it. Who knows? Maybe you'll be the next Walt Disney. Many of the older guests enjoy the culinary programs at the Disney Institute. Guests learn from world-class chefs in high-tech kitchens. They have enough cookware for 125 average kitchens, including 308 pots and pans, 1,200 knives, and 125 rolling pins.
At the baking class this morning, each person had their own stove, their own oven, their own cooking area, so that we could follow along with the teacher.
That's the flour right there, what you see there.
Want to make your green thumb even greener? Disney Institute offers classes in gardening and landscape design.
Kristen? Yeah? I'm sorry, what's this? It was really fun. They had everything organized. They've obviously done thousands of these. Kristen's had 13 years experience, and she really knew what she was doing. And I just felt like I had a chance to learn from an expert.
The formula is to keep it simple, show people what they can do with objects or materials that they can easily purchase themselves, and let them have a hands-on experience, interactive, where they can actually do it themselves, and be sure that they walk away with something. And as you say, it could be something that's up here that they take a memory away with them, or something that's physical that they can go back to their family or their friends and say, look what I made.
You can also learn about the environment, exploring the flora and fauna of the Central Florida swamplands.
Mostly what it means is getting to show our guests a part of Walt Disney World that they've not been able to see in the past, which is our conservation lands, the areas in which we have a lot of wildlife that is very close geographically to the parks that people have visited for years, but they haven't seen the other side.
If you're all able to really discipline yourself to come forward.
Life sports are also offered at Disney Institute. You can sharpen your golf game, play tennis, or basketball, or you can learn water aerobics. And after learning something new, it's time to pamper yourself. The Disney Institute offers a full-fledged spa, where you can indulge in a seaweed wrap, get a massage, or a French body polish. Guests stay on the grounds of the Disney Institute, in townhouses and bungalows. The Seasons Dining Room offers guests a different dining theme each night. Once you book a stay at the Disney Institute, Vacation consultants will work with you to plan your itinerary. You can immerse yourself in one interest area or mix and match programs. Summer camp was never like this. Well, if you'd like more information on the Disney Institute, you can give them a call at 1-800-496-6337. And please let them know that you heard about the Disney Institute on Time for Living.
Up next on Time for Living, he's called the Silver Fox. Find out why Paul Dukat gets this week's second effort salute. That's coming your way next, so stay with us. We're on a mission here at Time for Living. We're looking for New England's oldest member of the graduating class of 1996.
That's right, Janet. As we found out a few weeks ago, a lot of older Americans are heading back to school to hit the books, working toward their degree in their 60s, 70s, and who knows, maybe even older.
And once we find New England's oldest graduate, we'll feature that person on an upcoming second effort salute.
In just a few minutes, we'll give you our address, so if you know of someone who could be New England's oldest member of the class of 1996, please let us know.
But now it's time for today's second effort salute. Some people call Paul Dukat a marketing guru. The Weymouth, Massachusetts man has a number of different careers in his lifetime, but he's having the most fun with the job he's doing right now. Time for Living's Rod Fritz takes us behind the wheel with Paul Dukat, who gets this week's second effort salute.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Elite Limousine Service.
Paul Dukat is in the driver's seat. For the last 9 years, the 74-year-old Weymouth, Massachusetts man has owned and operated one of the most successful limousine services in the Bay State.
I treat this particularly as it's a pile of fun for me. I met so many nice people since I've had this limousine business, executives in corporations and companies, that some of them become friends of mine.
Paul graduated from Northeastern University in 1945 with a degree in marketing. He credits his marketing skills for the success of Elite Limousine Service.
It wasn't easy to get started, so I felt the easiest way for me to do this was to go out and solicit 8 or 10 businesses that the people could go in and buy a product for them, and they would get a punch and a card. So I called this thing called Elite Membership Club. It had 15 punches on it. As they get a punch from one of those businesses, they come in. When the card was finished, they come in, they get a 15% discount. Well, it worked. My cards were up in all these 15 businesses. They allowed me to put brochures in there, and eventually people started to call me. And once they started to call me, I knew I had something good going.
Paul knows that marketing alone does not make for a successful business. Follow-through and attention to detail are also important.
If you're going to service somebody, service them at the risk of anything else. Once a person gets in my car, they are the Lord and Master. They own the chauffeur, and whatever they want to do, as long as it's not breaking the law, we let them do. Right? So my golden rule is do exactly what my package tells you you're going to do, and do it to the best of your ability.
And that's exactly what Paul does. And his customers seem to like it.
I think the most rewarding part of this whole thing is watching something I create for service for a customer and having it be a complete success with the rewards of the customer saying, you know, it was great, we'll do it again.
Paul figures he'll retire eventually, but he has no plans to do so right now. In the meantime, he'll be providing the top-notch service his customers have come to expect.
Here we are, folks. Now watch your step.
I'm Rod Fritz. Time for living.
If you know of someone worthy of our second effort salute, or if you think you know who may be the oldest member of the class of 1996, please let us know. Write to us here at Time for Living, P.O. Box 1698, Framingham, Massachusetts 01701.
Or you can call our voicemail, and that's free, at 1-800-232-7213. And if you'd like to fax us, our fax number is 617-329-1774.
Now, if you missed that address or the phone numbers, don't worry. We'll repeat them again later in the show.
Now, next on Time for Living, we'll be reading your letters as we track our mailbag, so don't go away. We'd like to thank all you folks who have written or called Time for Living.
We love hearing from you, so please keep those cards and letters and calls coming.
You know, we'd like to recognize the Topsfield, Massachusetts Council on Aging and Executive Director Joanne Capone, who watch us on Channel 21. And also a special Salute to Renee McHugh and the staff at Northborough, Massachusetts Senior Center who dropped us a line. Thanks very much. And we urge you to stay with us as Time for Living grows. We'll have a lot of surprises and always things for you to get involved with over the weeks to come.
You know, Rex, it seems that you have a lot of fans. In fact, we heard from a Mrs. Morrison in Concord, New Hampshire, who said she's a 55-year-old resident of that city, and she wrote, "Dear Rex, I just wanted to tell you how much I love this program, and I just want to tell you this is just a fantastic program with so much good information. It's great to see you, Rex. He's always been such a great guy." That's from Mrs. Morrison in Concord, New Hampshire. Real love letter.
Well, isn't that nice? Thanks. You know, we also heard from Joseph Mastia of Holyoke. He watches the program on Channel 15, and he wants to know more about travel in Quebec and our previous segment on strength training. Well, Joseph, we'll be getting that information out to you this week. I've been to Quebec. I love it, and I highly recommend it. And thanks for taking the time to tune in and contact us.
Now, if you'd like to get in touch with us, our address is Time for Living, Post Office Box 1698, Framingham, Massachusetts 01701.
Or you can call our voicemail toll-free at 1-800-232-7213. Our fax number is 617-329-1774.
And when we return on Time for Living, we'll have a preview of next week's show. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon on Time for Living.
Please join us again next week at 3 right here on New England Cable News.
And in the weeks ahead, we have more exciting shows planned for you. We'll be taking a look at an assisted care facility. Why are people living longer and happier in these settings? We'll tell you why.
And an upcoming Second Everett Salute, we'll meet Jeannie Gannier, who's found a unique way to bridge the generation gap.
Of course, we'll be bringing you all our regular features, health, finance, and more, traveling around, and we'll read more of your letters.
And here's our address one more time. It's Time for Living, Post Office Box 1698, Framingham, Massachusetts 01701.
And we'll be keeping an eye on the mail, looking for your letter.
Now we leave you now with one more look at that beautiful Disney Institute in Central Florida. So until next week, remember,
it's time for living.